I think that we have seen a lot of discussion today. I think we all learned from each other quite a lot, and thank you very much to all the speakers for giving us ideas to... We discovered that, as Victor said a few minutes ago, we know that we don't know, as Socrates was saying. That's a good starting point, because you can do great things when you know that you don't know. It's an humble starting point, which will allow you to bring forward. So, what we will be discussing, you will not find this in ChatGPT, because it doesn't exist. It's not in anywhere, so you can play around with your iPhone, no, it doesn't exist. It's a crazy idea, but I had with few people, and I trapped Ananda in this kind of discussions. Because I would like to explain to you, I say this to Asia, sometimes you feel that everything is changing around you, and you have to give a contribution, a systemic approach to do something. And I think that with people around this room, ourselves in Brussels, few people in Amsterdam, few people in Washington, we can really propose a new systemic approach. And the key for this is that we have to explain your local needs to the financial world. We have to explain to London, and I have Richard with us. He was a blogging banker in London. He was a killer, a shark in London for years, He could sell the mom for a couple of basis points, Richard, a few years ago. No, it's true. No. And he was working for a German bank, so he knows very well, the real estate market in Europe. And he has also been operating in the major emerging countries, because also Richard has been supporting EBRD in introducing legislation in Georgia, in Bulgaria, in Turkey, and other countries, in Morocco, and has been really helping in building capital markets. And I think this is the key of the solution, because we have to respect all the microfinance needs at the local level, but then we have to package this somehow and bring this up in capital markets and getting resources to finance these needs. That's where we want to achieve. We have Ananta. Ananta is the CEO of one of the probably largest mortgage refinancing company of a booming country, Indonesia. I was in Jakarta. I'm fascinated by your country. Ananta, allow me to say, it's a country building a new capital with a massive housing needs, young population. I think the average age is around no more than 25. I don't know what it is. I think here in Africa is 19 years old. So they have the entire life to build their life, and they need a house. And then we have Christian. He's a dear friend, and he really helped us in making capital market access easy in several countries. He's very operational in South Africa, in other African countries, in Mozambique. Sorry, my Italian comes out sometimes. We call this Mozambique in Italian. But he did something very special in Singapore. In few years, we have been able to open the entire Singaporean markets to the covered bond market. Now they are the major investors in Asia, and all doing the same thing and doing the same disclosures. So German investors are buying very easily Singaporean paper, like if it was a domestic paper. So this happened only in few years' time. And I would like to discuss with you what we can do here to make emerging markets a bit more attractive for international investors, and make not a mortgage more bankable, but a country more bankable. What we can be doing? What are the ammunition that we have? We have half an hour, gentlemen. I will start maybe from London. Like this, we start with what is needed for a big, boring German investors, as we say. Yeah. Then Ananta, I will come to you, and I would like to ask you, what are the needs of a country like Jakarta, and what you need as a liquidity facility for a large number of banks and 320 million of people who live in house. And then, Christian, will come to you. I would like to ask what you can do for us, and what services you can provide to help this mechanism to happen. Richard.
You really didn't warn us what the questions were going to be. That's absolutely true. So what is the German, what will get the boring German pension fund here next year? I guess, many factors. I can probably summarise three of them. Return, risk and regulations. By return, I mean simply the economists in the room, the the natural interest rates in an old declining country like Germany, like most of the countries in Europe, is incredibly low. Yields on German covered bonds were negative. Negative in nominal terms, not even real terms. They're really negative in real terms for a very long time. They're still extremely low in real terms. They're not paying anyone's pension. I think that just as much as there is a need for you for funds, there's a need for the German investor base to invest. How do we match those two together? Well, we do it in a way that is as close as possible to the way that they understand. The German investor is very, very used to investing, particularly in mortgages, in covered bonds. Now, Germany is very, very different from any of the countries represented in this room, but we have to find a different route to get to the same destination. There are many routes there. We will have different legal structures, we'll have different methods of valuation, we'll have different sets of regulation, but what we really want to get to on a very principles-based thing is something which the end result is as close as possible to what they've been investing in for 200 years. They're literally 200 years. And then the third part of it is a consequence of that, which is regulation. I'm sorry to come on about Europe, but the European Union has passed a covered bond directive. It defines on a principles basis what a covered bond needs to look like. And on the back of that, soon we are going to have a situation where a German investor can treat a non-European covered bond, looks, smells and feels like a European covered bond, that meets all those principles, that meets all those objectives on an equal basis. So for all of their regulatory purposes, for all of their reserve ratio purposes, for whatever technical requirements they need, they will be able to invest on equal terms in something which is a high yield and a safe format that they're familiar with. Now, equivalence isn't coming this year, isn't coming next year, but over 5 years, time horizon, we'll be in that situation where we can get that. There are many other things. Christian probably wants to talk about the data aspects and the transparency and the ESG things, but the quick summary, conscious of time, that's the main thing for me.
We have discussed the precondition, what we have to put in place, what is needed to make this happen as a systemic approach. Ananta, let's go to Jakarta. I mean, how do you see things? What we can do to help? I mean, what can be done to build more funding opportunities for you, to cheap your cost of managing your portfolio, and to bring more investors to your country?
Thank you, Luca. I think I would like to share with you regarding the latest development of the housing sector in Indonesia. As the new President Prabowo Subianto will be inaugurated on the 20th October this year and will be appointed new ministers. His program for 2024 until 2029 is 3 million houses per year. Under former president is only 1 million, but right now he is tripling. 3 million housing per year, 1 million in the urban areas. It means in the cities, it means building more, not only houses, but also taller apartments, something like this one. And then 2 million houses in the rural area, especially for improving the uninhabitable houses. So home improving. So we can figure out how many funding will be needed. It's still calculated, but 2025, the initial budget for the housing is already set, is around 53 trillion rupiah, equivalent in US dollar, maybe around 3 billion US dollars.
That's $1,000 per house.
Huh?
That's $1,000 per house.
It's impossible. Affordable housing, it is costly at least 9,000 US dollars in Indonesia. Okay? So, to attract foreign investor, there is precondition for the investment in housing sector in Indonesia. First is economic stability, stable economic and consistent growth. Indonesian growth is 5%, inflation is around 1.5%, sound fiscal policies. Second, regulatory environment, a clear and favorable legal framework, including streamlined process for foreign investment. It is very challenging. Third is housing market potential. High demand for housing needed, driven by population structure. Yes, indeed, it is already a fact. The existing backlog for the ownership is already 9.2 million households, and for the housing improvement in the rural area is 26.1 household. So we can imagine how many houses needed. And the third, political stability. Provide certainty for investors that policy will not change drastically. It's already improved. Political stability in Indonesia, the transition between president, one president to non-president goes smoothly. And then other factors, including the sector for development with the green development to support the SDG, is already implemented. For the housing, right now, I think in the medicine will be implemented for the green housing. I think another. I just want to emphasize about the government policy and regulation environment. To attracting for investment in the housing infrastructure, there is a 3-point already conduct by the government. First is omnibus law on the job creation and financial sector development, simplified investment rules for foreign capital, trust fund establishment to fund management in investment, creation of SPV to support securitization in housing, and enhance authority of the Financial Service Authority to ensure prudent financial practice. Minister of Finance regarding regulation of the FET exemptions, the exemption of FET for new residential home prices up to 5 billion rupiah, around 300,000 US dollars, facilitate affordability for the home buyers. And government regulation on the land right and registrations offer low-income citizens the opportunity to own a house and aims to stimulate economic growth in the housing sectors. On the progress right now, in order to enhance the reliability of the information for the investors, the government is preparing the financial report single window policy to ensure standardization of the content, accuracy of the financial report sufficient, and establishment of the financial reporting standard committee.
Thank you, Ananta. It's very clear the size of the challenge that we have to help Ananta. And like Ananta, I think we have plenty of other people in this room that have a similar problem. Christian, what we can do to help here? I mean, what can be done?
Yeah, maybe just jump on. And thanks that you are still here and for the invitation, Luca. Yeah, it remembers me back why we created, as from actually 2005, such a big global standard for mortgages worldwide. And this all came actually from the credit crisis. When that hit, especially in the States and also in Europe, issuers had a big funding gap. Nobody would like to finance mortgages anymore, even not in Europe, in the US. We were sitting with all the banks in Europe to think, how can we solve this problem? And for that reason, we created a global template. It's used by, I think, all the mortgage providers, financiers, at least in the Netherlands, but also in Germany or in Italy or Spain. And then it comes, in the end, if you define that, and we did this also at the moment in the SME market here in Africa. We do that in Rwanda, Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa. And there was somebody mentioning today, data is the problem. Data is not the problem. It is available. In Africa, I think you have more data than in Europe. It is more, or the banks would like to make it available. And that is something where we can work on together, I think, and that's also something where I would like to put a role. When it comes to definition, it is crucial for investors and of course not the DFIs, because they understand your market. But if it comes to the black box, the alliances, the big pension funds in Germany or in the Netherlands, they would like to compare the African market, but even Mozambique with Tanzania, or Tanzania with Rwanda, even if it is next to each other. The regulation is totally different. That's why you have to work together as well. And maybe if I can add one thing extra on this, in the end it all goes to transparency, and not just transparency on one day. No, it needs to be dynamic transparency for the lifetime of this transaction. And that means structural processes. I'm a tech expert, and I founded this company 22 years ago already. It's now listed, but still, as a tech company, we are developing each day with 50 developers to create even more transparency.
I mean, I think it will be easier for a country, for example, to have a template, a point of reference. Because I mean, like this, I mean, everyone knows what they're doing. You know that it's right. You know what kind of IT investment you have to do as a bank. Because I think a CEO of a bank, struggle. I mean, where I have to put my money, which is the IT system that I have to put in place. I think that if an organization like ISMMA, for example, give a blessing to a certain template or to a platform like Offnet, I think you give a strong political excuse to everyone to play with the same cards. And once that we play with the same cards, everyone can do business in a more harmonized way. And that is a systemic approach. Investors are more comfortable, and you could start to have investors that you will not even think to have in your portfolio, simply because they say, well, you know what? I know I can measure my risk, I can come to your market. That will be very important. But that's not the only element, common template. I think there is also regulation, MRC, financial structures. Richard, I mean, you, as your consultancy, you are helping in drafting securitization law, covered bond laws, and they are all more or less the same, no? You have a package that you copy and paste, come on, I mean, you adapt, but I mean, it's more or less the same kind of structure to sell around, no?
There's a lot of commonality about it. You have to adapt to national specificities, of course you do. Can I give an example of the case study for Georgia? I think Georgia is a very interesting country. If you're not familiar with it, it's a middle-income country. It's a strong single B, weak double B. I don't know exactly at the moment. It's that kind of space. It's a very dynamic country with a lot of energy, a lot of potential for growth. And it went on a very nice journey with covered bonds. The journey didn't start well. It started with the banking crisis. For various reasons, the banks were not in a nice place. The National Bank of Georgia had to keep them afloat with emergency liquidity. When national banks do that, they like to see marketable, high-quality collateral. There was collateral for their facilities. There wasn't any. The only real assets they had on their books was mortgages. So the National Bank had to say, well, we'll take the mortgages as collateral. Let's hope we never have to enforce, because we really don't want to be owning these assets. But this is a temporary measure. Turn these assets into a high-quality, marketable security. All banks said, well, we don't have a law. So the National Bank of Georgia came to the EBRD, and we worked on putting in place the law very quickly. I think we did it within 18 months from start to finish. And now the National Bank is simply saying, over time, if you borrow liquidity against mortgages, it's going to get worse. If you're going to borrow liquidity against mortgage-backed covered bonds, it's going to get better to reflect their marketable nature. But that's only a temporary measure. We don't want to be the lender to the entire banking system. Sooner or later, we're going to start making mortgage facilities against mortgage-covered bonds worse. and that's going to push you to issue bonds into the market. And that's what's going to happen relatively soon, I suspect. Now, it's about developing the local investor base. It's a George and Lowry story at first, and then the next stage of the cycle is going to be about attracting foreign funding, the boring German investors into that market. I've spoken to a couple of investment banks. They're fighting to get to that market. They really have a huge demand for it because they can see it's done on a consistent basis. They can check the collateral. They've got great data about the collateral, and I think it's a precedent for a middle-income country, to develop a framework for funding income bonds very quickly. The other great thing about it, I'm quite transparent. If you just Google Georgian covered bonds, go onto the national. They've got some nice presentations explaining what a covered bond is, how it differs from securitization, and the process and all the stuff around that. It wasn't just about passing a covered bond law. We needed a derivatives law. We needed other legal aspects changing. We needed regulation put in place. But yeah, that on the National Bank of Georgia website, there's some nice materials on that.
Maybe we are approaching the past time. I would like just to conclude the day with an emotional moment, in the sense of what we are all dreaming a new paradigm for the housing market. The status quo is not sustainable. Like this, we cannot meet the targets that we have in place. So we need to invent something different, to shake the tree and to get something really done. And I think it's the responsibility of all of us to propose something strong, convincing, that can attract the attention of policymakers around the globe. Let's try to list what we have done so far and what can be done even further. I mean, as I said today, I think the pillar is data. And we are proposing something quite strong, ambitious, probably too much, but I mean, sometimes we have to think a bit behind the others. Of it, Maria, I'm looking at it. Because this is the alphabetization of the housing market. Without this, we have no alphabetization, we have no data, and we cannot take any action. Then we need templates. I'm looking at you, Christian, because we need templates to let the investors discover your market, your portfolio, and help the bank to make compliance. Compliance is a key issue. Compliance is needed for issuers, lenders, policymakers, and investors. So if you don't allow stakeholders to make basic compliance operation, and this is what Christian is doing. Christian is arriving to Singapore, bringing all the banks on the same page, and it's allowing the compliance office of Commerzbank to be happy and to make a deal in 5 minutes. Before it was taking for the Commerzbank compliance office 20 days to approve a deal. With what Christian has done, they are making transaction in a question of minutes. When you have your books open and you are into the market, this makes the difference between basis points. It makes money. And we have to follow the money. If we don't follow the money, we are naive and we don't understand the importance of this operation. I think it's very fundamental. We are all here to make business and everyone has a vested interest. Our job is to put the vested interest in the right direction and keep the loop moving. That's what we have to do. Then we need lenders like Ananta able to take the risk to guide the change and to change the mentality in their countries. We need Ananta to guide us and to help us to convince the Minister of Finance, the central banks, that referring to a global approach is important. Then we need to support Ananta or Oscar by making very nice events where we bring at least 200 people in the place and we let all think that we are doing something important. We have to do this in Zanzibar. We have to do this in Jakarta. We have to do this in Manila. We have to do, and we have a clear roadmap. Every 2 events, we bring a lot of investors. So when we go to Manila in March, we make a stopover in Singapore just to make sure that investors will be there, will listen to us. We explain to investors what we are doing. So just to convince you that we are not doing blah, blah, blah here. We are not doing blah, blah, blah. You are changing the world. We are making a revolution because it's needed. Why is needed? Well, we need to change legislation. So we need to build a narrative. You have to go to a government, Georgia, Armenia, whatever you want, Uzbekistan, And you have to explain that you are a serious guy, and what you are proposing is serious and is workable. And you should avoid something that is not workable, or where the performance. We have seen billions of money wasted in a useless operation and a useless thing. So I think that it's the time to rationalize a bit the process, and we can do it. Because what CAHF you have built, what Mali you have built, is a community that for 30 years have been thinking, have been proposing, have been doing studies. Probably what we have studied is not anymore valid, but we have the ammunition to put everything in the right factory. Then, can we change the world? I think yes. And I explain to you why. I think that the housing is the engine of the world. And Maya knows, Olivia, we were together in Tunis. When we had the meeting in Tunisia, was 1 year or 15 months ago. Just a few weeks before, I had a shocking element, a shock complete in my life. I brought my kids to Aquino in the south of Sicily, the lovely place if you want to go. Amazing wine, amazing food. But there was something that shocked me in a way that I will never forget. It was in the morning, we went to a nice beach, was very nice. My kids, blonde and blue eyes, were playing with my wife, blonde and blue eyes. And we have seen that on the beach during the night, thousands of people have been landing, and half of them unfortunately didn't make it. It was full of clothes on the river. Clothes of women, clothes for the kids, everything packed in. So every night in that beach, there are thousands of people trying to arrive in Europe. And over there, I asked myself, what we can do? And there are two things that we can do. We can do Europe a better place, more open, to welcome these people. Because I'm an immigrant, exactly like these people who are trying to arrive. I left my country when I was 18, because I understood that there was no future for me. And you go in another country, and the only sense of house, home that you have to fight against your nostalgia is your house. I always say, you are at home where you pay your mortgages. That's your home, when you have built around. So this sense of stability that we can create in people is, yes, here we go, I was about to conclude. The sense of stability that we can create is immense. Is immense. We can give hope to people in Africa, in Asia, to build their future wherever you want. Can be in your country, can be in another country, but we are at the center of this change. And paradigm can be changed. So I really believe that we have the capacity to be charismatic and to move things toward our things. There is a lot of money waiting to feed this machine, and we can do it. Speaking the same language, having the common template, same labels, and for example, we can do carbon credit. We can change the carbon credit market by proposing something altogether. With the blessing of the World Bank, IFC, carbon credit can be the excuse to move money north-south, east-west. So with this, I would like to thank my panelists. They are pioneers. You want to, I put you in a difficult situation. No.
Thank you very much. Because this opportunity just not by coincidence, but it's perfect. I think with the new governments, the new minister, there will be a special minister on in housing will be set up by the new government. And then next year, maybe after I have to consult with my Philippine partners. I think Indonesia would like to have some seminar regarding housing finance to attract foreign investment to how implement the strategy and to make it happen for 3 million houses per year. And this is very important for the new president. The new president is not just like a former president. He is 4-star general, special army, and he is politician, is also a businessman. Former. He said AA, BB, something. Former. I think his promises for the 3 million houses is not a joke. His firm. Because his program, beside the 3 million houses, his program is to give the free will for the yeah, donation for the children and for the mother and pregnant, something like this. Free meal. This is will be implemented starting, I think, this year also. The budget already been set up by the government. For the housing, the budget of the government is limited, so we need foreign investors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, so we see how relevant, how imminent is what we are doing. So just to conclude, thank you very much for today. I mean, it was really amazing. We have learned a lot. You can count on us in the sense that there is a team working. You have a spy in Brussels and probably a couple in Washington ready to build something to help you. Let us know what you need. And please let us know also that we can count on you. We need your data, we need your ideas, everything. I think this will be the basis for the next conference that we will be doing next year, where we can continue this discussion. But for sure we can continue tonight, and it's a wonderful dinner, and in the next couple of days where we will stay still all together and exchange views. Thank you very much. Keisha, I give you back the floor. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.